Wes Bennett, Commissioner of the Department of Local Government Finance. I want to welcome everyone this afternoon and thank you for being in the room today. We really appreciate the interest from so many of our tax professionals, both this morning and this afternoon, and we've been looking forward to this webinar for several months. First, we're excited to share the enhancements that we've been working on since the close of the last tax filing season. You're going to hear from Scott and Barry today about those enhancements, and they're going to talk for the next hour, answering your questions and showing you what we've got looking forward, and show you what we've done to address the concerns that we've heard from you over the course of the last year. Second, like you, our goal is to provide the best and most efficient way for our client, your client, to file their personal property return. We've been working hard to improve last year's Popin model, and we think you're going to find that we've done that today. Third, when we succeed in making your job easier and more efficient, that translates into helping the local assessor's office be more efficient, and most importantly, your client, the taxpayer, is better served. And finally, our partnership with you and the feedback we glean from your participating in today's workshop and what you've done in the past helps make the process and the tools that we have developed more useful and effective. So you're going to see that over the course of the next several days, we're going to be pushing this material out on our website. We're going to have this video available on YouTube. So look for us on the YouTube and share this video with any of your colleagues that couldn't be with us today. And as always, be sure to hit that like button. And please, at the end of the survey or at the end of today's workshop, please take our survey and let us know what you like and what we need to make better. So again, thanks for being here today. And on behalf of Governor Holcomb, Lieutenant Governor Crouch, and everyone at DLGF, we wish you and your family a safe and joyous holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone and Merry Christmas. Over to you, Barry and Scott.
Thanks, Wes. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. Really excited to share what we've got here with you about Popin and what it is that we've got going forward. We're very proud of the product that we put together and the success that we had in year one, and we're interested in sharing with you more about how we can continue that progress here in the second year of Popin. As Wes said, my name is Scott Maitland. I'm the Chief of Staff and IS Division Director. Later, you'll hear from Barry Wood as well, our Assessment Division Director, and Jenny Banks is also here with us today moderating the conversation. For those of you online, you are able to submit questions to the presentation, and we'll see those. Jenny will answer as many of those as she can, but there is time at the end of the presentation that we've reserved to answer some of those questions in the open discussion time that we've got presented. We may or may not get to every question, depending on how many there are. In our morning session, there were quite a few, and so regardless of how many we get to, we will be releasing a document at the end of the probably early next week that answers all of the questions that were submitted to us. Sometimes we'll combine a few questions if they're the same question, and we won't take them word for word, but for the most part, we'll take your questions and answer them as fully as we can on that document, so you have some sort of reference document moving forward. In addition to that, as Commissioner Bennett said, the presentation itself will be posted on our website, as well as a video of this presentation, as well as our YouTube channel. So I highly recommend that you check those out as well. Let's jump right in. I want to start today by talking about the agenda. And for those of you who are unaware of what Popin is, we have a quick overview of what Popin is and what you can do with it. We then move on to talking about how you access support for Popin and the various different channels that you can go through to get that support, as well as talk about where you can find some materials to support yourself, do some self-support whenever that's available and more convenient for you. We had some questions about the way that data flows through Popin to the assessors back to the taxpayers, and I'd like to take a very brief moment to discuss that today. And the real meat of the conversation today is going to be focused on how you as CPAs or as tax professionals register for the system, how taxpayers register for the system, and then how we get the two of you connected so that you can serve your clients through Popin. We'll start to close the presentation then, after that explanation, we'll do a live demo of that process so that you can see exactly what it is that you would see and what your clients will see as they go through this process. Then we'll move on to the updates for 2022 that Barry will go through for us. We've got a few final comments towards the end, just some reminders and some quick tips. And then we'll end the session today with by answering any questions that have not been answered through the presentation. With that said, let's go ahead and get started in the actual content. Popin stands for the Personal Property Online Portal for Indiana, and it's a 24/7 self-service portal that allows taxpayers and agents to file personal property returns online securely through a centralized portal. We also have made the portal accept uploads of various forms that are not yet fillable on the throughout the application. There are two different ways to submit filings through Popin. One is what we call the guided method, and that's what we think is close to the TurboTax method, which will help you determine which forms it is you need based on the answering of some questions. The other is the direct method, where it's just basically the straight form that you fill out. If you're more familiar with the forms and you know what you're doing, that might be a little bit easier for you. To do this project, the department partnered with Xsoft, an Indiana software development company that's very well versed in the property tax space. We're very happy that we did. They provided fantastic service for us and continue to do so as we upgrade our system and continue to move this project forward. There are currently 7 forms that are available to be filled out on Popin: 102, 103, short and long, N and O, the 104, and the 106. In addition to those, you have the ability to upload any supplemental forms that you find would be important for your submission. And we will continue to expand this list in the future and planning on continuing to add more forms as we expand Popin in the future. The application for the 2022 filing season will be ready in January. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the future, but as the filing season opens in January, so will the application, and it'll be available all the way through the deadline and even past for those people filing late or amended returns. You can do all of this right now at popin.in.gov. I recommend, as we get through this presentation today, that you begin registering for your accounts and registering your clients so that you are ready when the system is ready in January. If you ever have any questions or need some support with Popin, there are a few different channels that you can go through. The first, if you need technical support, if a button's not working or you get an error message on the screen, reach out to the DLGF at support@dlgf.in.gov. That'll get you directly to somebody here at the department who can help you and can help you understand if there's something that you can do, or we can help prioritize a fix to get it done, to get that completed. If you have questions relating to the content of the forms, what goes in this box, should I put this amount here or there? Those are questions that I would contact your local assessor's office about. The way that I describe it is if it's a question you would have asked your assessor last year or before you started filing on Popin, you should still ask your assessor now. Finally, I know we have some county officials on the line with us today, and for those of you working in county offices, if you have questions about how to integrate Popin into your systems, then reach out to your Xsoft support representative. You should be aware of who that is, and they can help you. If for some reason you reach out to the wrong person on this list, we all talk very well together, we communicate very well together, and we'll be able to get you in the right spot. But I do recommend, to get the fastest service, that you reach out to the correct person to begin with. As you might imagine, we do get more and more requests as filing season moves forward, and we do try to respond as quickly as we can. But I recommend people working as early as possible so that if you do run into an issue, we are able to respond with enough time for you to effectuate whatever changes are necessary. If you wait until the day of the deadline and reach out to us, you'll be one of many who will be trying to get back to you in enough time, and we can't promise that we'll get back to you in enough time at that point. But if you are 3-4 weeks ahead of time, that might be a little bit easier for us to make sure you get your issue resolved. In addition to the people that you can reach out to, there are also support materials available to you. Popin on its webpage has 2 different main pages that you can get various types of support. There is a help page and an FAQ page, both of which contain fantastic amount of detail that is helpful for various different questions. Embedded in some of those pages are videos that you can watch, various articles, and they're located in the top navigation bar. When we're doing our demo later, I'll be sure to point those out. Additionally, if you are logged into Popin, those pages will be curated to be specific to the type of user that you have logged in. We'll talk a little bit in the future about the types of users that are available in Popin. And just know that there are some functionalities that are only available to certain users, and so those features are only shown on the logged in versions of those users. For questions about the data flow, as we go through this, you'll probably be pretty familiar with this if you're familiar with the way that it works now. The intention of Popin was not to change the way the data flowed, but rather to just make it more efficient. And so the data flow starts with the taxpayer or the agent completing a filing. Popin is able to forward that filing to the appropriate assessor's office based on the information that you provided. The assessor is then provided a message to let them know a filing has been submitted. They will review the filing in the same way they always do, and they'll mark it as accepted or rejected. Now, that is the 2 sort of binary terminal states of a filing. However, it is not uncommon for the assessors, like it is with the paper forms, for them to reach out to people with questions or for clarifications. And so there might be a time when your assessor reaches out to you and it's not yet in an accepted or rejected state, but they're just looking for more clarification and maybe some edits here or there. Ultimately, though, all filings are either accepted or rejected, and when that happens, a taxpayer is provided a notification as to the status of their filing. That's probably pretty familiar to you, as it's not very different from the way that the current system works. All right, so now as we get into the registration process, you do need a Popin account in order to use Popin. So in order to get your Popin account, navigate to popin.in.gov and select the register option on the page. There's 2 different buttons that say register, and both of them will take you to where you need to go. And what it'll do to begin with is it'll take you to Access Indiana. And that's the state of Indiana's single sign-on account service that's used by various different state agencies. It's a collaboration between the Secretary of State's office and the Indiana Office of Technology, as well as many different agencies, including DOR's InTime, InBiz, and various other applications. Once you've logged in or registered for your Access Indiana account, it'll return you to Popin to finish your registration there. We talked briefly earlier about the 4 different user types that are available, and I'd like to go through those now so that there's no confusion about which one you should select whenever you're registering for your account. So the 4 different options available are listed in blue on this page. If you are the option listed as I am an Indiana resident or property owner, you should select this option if you're a taxpayer. If it is your business that you're filing on behalf of, then that is the option that's most relevant to you. The option listed as I am an agent representing 1 or more Indiana property owners is what we call an authorized agent, and that is CPAs, accountants, etc., who are trying to file on behalf of the taxpayer. The option listed as I am a county official is for county assessor's office employees who are working in their official capacity and are trying to use Popin to review and make decisions on Popin accounts. We've reached out to all of the county assessor's offices, and if you still need to register for your county office, we have a list of approved users. If you're not on that list, we will reach out to the office to ensure that you should be getting access. But for those county officials on the call here today, if you ever have questions about who has access to your county or getting somebody else access, please reach out to us directly, at the support email that we've listed before. Finally, nobody on this call other than DLGF employees should be using the final option, but just to tell you what it is for, there is an I am a member of the DLGF, and again, you'll need to be approved for this. And that is so that we can monitor the site, maintain it appropriately, and make sure everything's going okay. The next section that we're going to talk about is connecting a taxpayer and an agent. Once both parties have a registered account, there's a way for them to connect each other so the agent may work on behalf of the taxpayer. Both taxpayer and agent must both agree to connect their accounts via the agent's invite code. And all of this is facilitated via Popin. It manages this, and both parties can manage their authorizations directly in the system. Once both taxpayer and agent have connected their accounts, this connection will continue to persist until it's been revoked by one of the two parties. And with that, I think we're ready to do our quick demo of the registration and connection process. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment while I move over to our web browsers. If you give me just a second, I will be right back. Alrighty, I hope that you can see my two web browsers that I have available here. On the left, I'm logged in as a taxpayer already. The taxpayer registration process is very similar to that of the agent process. And so I'm just going to go through the one agent registration process, and I'll show you where it differs between agents and taxpayers. And then we'll connect the two as we go through it. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to register as an agent, and this is the homepage of Popin. If you just go to popin.in.gov, and here are the register and login buttons, as well as up here. It doesn't matter which one you click on, they'll both take you to the same space. We'll go ahead and register, and it lets you know that we're moving on to Access Indiana, so let's go ahead and continue there. We're now at Access Indiana, and if you have an account, go ahead and put your email address in here. If you do not have an account, click this link here that says you do not have one, and we'll go ahead and do this. I'm going to use a temporary email address just so that we can go through the process here. You'll enter your email address right here and click Send Verification Code. Access Indiana will then email you a verification code that you need to enter into the box here. And as soon as I receive it, I'll go ahead and move on. And there we go. Here's the verification code, and we'll go ahead and click Continue. I'm going to set up a password here, and there are various password requirements. Go ahead and follow those on the screen. You should be just fine. Click Continue, and then now set up your account. And we'll click Create Account. Now there's two more questions here that I recommend that you read through and decide for yourself. This one, first one is enabling two-step verification, which I recommend for anybody to verify and to secure your account. Because this is a temporary account, I'm going to go ahead and click No Thanks. The next one is asking about a recovery email. If for some reason you're not able to access your the email you used to sign up, it is possible to set up a secondary email so that you can regain access to your account. Again, I recommend this for anybody setting up their account for the first time, but because this is a temporary account, I'm going to continue with the no thanks option. With that, Access Indiana is going to return me back to Popin, and I'll have to finish my account here. I'll enter my phone number, and then I'll choose which role I want. To get to this screen where you are a taxpayer, you select this first option that we talked about before, but I want to select as an agent, and so I'm going to go ahead and click this here. That now asks me to put in business information, and this is the information that will be displayed to taxpayers when they connect their account to your business. So in this case, we'll go ahead and fill out this information. Once I click register, I'll be taken to the home page. And now this is what you will see if you're logged in as an agent. So now we'd like to connect these two accounts. You can see right here, the agent invite code is listed in bold right here on the front page. If you go into this manage clients page, you'll see any taxpayers that have been connected to your account and view in progress and prior year filings for those taxpayers. And then again, here is your agent invite code. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. On the taxpayer side, the taxpayer has the option to begin their own filing, view in progress or prior year filings, or manage their authorized agents. In this case, we want to manage our authorized agent and move forward with connecting the two accounts. In this case, this taxpayer has no authorized agents connected already, and so they'd like to connect with our account over here. I'll enter the invite code that we saw over here, and I'll click Add Agent. It tells me the person's name, and I'll click OK. That is the person. And now here is the information that we showed earlier. It is listed as pending because our agent has not yet accepted this client, but we'll come back over here. We'll refresh the page, and we now see that Scott M., the taxpayer over here, has requested us to connect, listed as pending right now. If I accept this taxpayer, it allows me to confirm I'm now authorized. If I come back over here and refresh this page, it shows that I've now authorized Agent Smith to work on my account. You can see that both sides have an ability to revoke or to decline access. And so in this case, if I were to click this, this would revoke Agent Smith's access of my personal, of my taxpayer account. And if you are an agent and you do not wish for someone to be connected any longer, you can decline right here. You go ahead and you can work on behalf of a client by selecting right here, clicking confirm. And now in here, your page looks very similar to that first page that we saw for taxpayers. You can go back here, deselect the client, and move on to the next one to move on to your next person. I mentioned earlier that the FAQ and the help pages are in the top navigation bar, and you can see them right up here next to the home button or the dashboard button. The FAQ and the help pages are particular to the person that you're interested in and have all sorts of information, including video and documents that would be helpful for you. I think that concludes what we wanted to go over as far as our demo was concerned. And so let me stop sharing my screen again, and I'll bring the presentation back up, and I'll be right back. All right, I hope you can see my presentation again now. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is passing it over to Barry Wood, our Assessment Division Director, to talk to us about the updates for 2022.
Thanks, Scott. My name is Barry Wood. I'm the Assessment Division Director for the DLGF. And last year was our first year with Popin, and the number of filers far exceeded our expectations. And after the filing season last summer, we sent out a survey to the assessors, to taxpayers, and to agents to get your feedback as far as what you liked and what we could improve upon, and we took all those suggestions to heart. So I just want to cover a few of the updates that we'll be rolling out for the next year's filing process. So next slide, please. So one of the things is that you can see the tools and system upgrades is that we wanted to have a little bit more flexibility for the assessors and their staff in terms of processing the returns. So made several upgrades to the system. There were several bugs that we encountered that we were able to resolve, and those included issues such as naming issues and township selection errors, things like that. So we were able to resolve or fix several of those significant bugs that we had. And another update or improvement is the better validation for submissions, so that forms won't likely there will be a lesser likelihood of the forms being rejected. So, next slide, please. One of the things we intended to do when we first designed Popin was to have rollover capabilities. So in other words, when a taxpayer first enters the information last year, that information is saved, and when they go to file their return this coming year, all that information will pop back up, no pun intended. And all you would have to do is just go through and make sure that the information is correct and accurate. You can certainly make changes, but we want to make sure that all the previous year's data is available, and to make it easier and faster for the assessors to review and for the taxpayers to file. Another key thing we did was a messaging tool, and this is especially for the assessors, being able to communicate with the taxpayers and or the agents and CPAs, the filers, to let them know, if a return has been rejected, here's why the return was rejected, or if a business closed, for the taxpayer to be able to easily communicate with the assessors, as far as why the business is closed, and just try to make it as transparent as possible for both the assessors and for the taxpayers and the filers. Next slide, please. One of the key things we heard from agents and CPAs is, hey, we have software already in place, the API software that we use, quite a few use for the filing process. Can we integrate our API software with Popin? And that is something we are currently working with Xsoft on. We probably will not be able to have it released or ready to go when Popin first comes back up in early January, but we certainly hope to have it ready to go by the time the bulk of the filings are done in the spring. One key thing we heard from taxpayers and agents alike was, we want to use a system, but we don't want to pay for this system. And Commissioner Bennett has been very adamant that there will be no fees charged for the 2022 filing process in Popin. So please be rest assured that we heard you, and we heard you loudly and clearly, and there will be no fees charged for filing next year. So that's a quick highlight of the updates for 2022. So Scott, back to you.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate it. Some last additional notes here before we move on to answering the questions that are in the chat. We do want to make sure that you're aware that there will be a blackout period for Popin this year from the beginning of the year to the 12th in January. We're shutting that down while we roll over and create the new forms for 2022. We don't want anyone showing up on the 1st before we were able to get the forms rolled over and submitting forms that they thought were for 22, but are actually still the 21 forms. And so, so as to keep the window open this year for as long as possible, we decided to hold off on that blackout period until those first 2 weeks of January. In addition to that, for all the new features that Barry mentioned, as well as some additional clarification, help videos, FAQs, and documentation will all be updated during that blackout period so that whenever it is back online, they are up to date. And they're all available via Popin if you ever need them. Just to reiterate one more time, the presentation materials from today will be on the department's website, including a video, including the document that we mentioned as far as the FAQs or the questions that we might not be able to get to here today. And then one last note is that there are as many business configurations as there are businesses, it seems. And so if you have a special business configuration that you need help setting up, please reach out to us directly. We're more than happy to help with that. The email address on the screen with the subject line there and some information about the configuration that you're trying to set up. We're very happy to help guide you on the best way to set those up. What we showed here today is the most basic example, attempting not to confuse anyone and just show the most basic functionality that most people will use. However, there are plenty of other configurations out there, and so I've already seen some of them in the questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help with that. All righty. So now we've gotten to the question and answer portion of the presentation, and I see that we've got plenty here in the chat, but just a reminder, if you do have a question, please feel free to use the question and answer functionality in the chat for the Teams window, and we'll try to get through as many of these as we can. Shelly asks, are the forms like a fillable PDF on your website? The form is not necessarily like a fillable PDF. They do, we do try to make them look as close to the PDF as possible. However, they are not just fillable PDFs. And your question about does information carry over from one page to another? It does where applicable. Obviously, we don't just do it when not necessary, but there is logic built in that brings the different pages together when it makes sense to do so. Shelley again asks if she is filing returns for various taxpayers and they're the same mailing address but separate property addresses, we'll be able to have all of that info autofill. As your taxpayers fill out their profiles, Shelley, they'll fill out their sort of, as you might consider, demographic information or profile information, and that information will be auto entered into their forms where applicable. Things like business name or address, so you don't have to fill it out on every form every time. So I hope that answers your question. I think that's what you're asking, but if not, please feel free to throw in a clarification. I'm happy to answer it. To the same question, will my agent info carry over on all forms? That is correct. That will also carry over from all forms. The question about multiple preparers in the office, should we use a general agent email account or set up each preparer with an account? I would say that's definitely up to you. We've seen businesses do it both ways. If you'd like to talk more about the specifics of your organization and what makes sense, we're happy to give some guidance on what we've seen other organizations do. But both of the suggestions that you have using one email account or each preparer with an account are viable options that you can use. For owners who file for multiple businesses, are we able to file under one Popin login, or do we have to create logins for each business they own? It was a large issue last year, and we think that we've resolved it. It used to be that you could only have one business name per profile. That is not the case anymore. Barry briefly mentioned some of the naming issues that we had last year, and we think that we've resolved those. I'd be happy to talk to you more about the best ways to do this. In fact, already today, Jenny and I have been talking about releasing a set of videos that might be helpful in various different circumstances for the most common configurations. And more questions like this are just, I think, proving the point that that's a good idea for us to do. So maybe be on the lookout for those. We'll continue to update people through our emails, but that is possible, I believe, with one login this year. Can you upload files into Popin from other property tax management systems? Today, no, you cannot. Hopefully this year, we are trying to make that a possibility. Barry mentioned the API connection between property tax management systems and Popin. I'm assuming when you say property tax management systems, you mean the systems that that CPAs and things use to fill out the forms. We are trying to make those connections. We've been in contact with, I believe, 5 or 6 different software companies to try and make that connection. And we're hoping to do that this year in plenty of time for that to be a possibility. I believe that you stated the website is not yet functional to accept personal property returns from UltraTax. That's correct. Is there an option to enter the client name, EIN, and address or parcel, and then upload forms they were required without keying in all the information? I would hesitate to do that. I think that your assessor might prefer that you don't do that. I would work with your assessor, however, to make sure they're okay with that before you would do that. But like I just said, we are trying to make the connection to UltraTax, so I'm hoping that we can, that's a non-issue this year. Would I be able to complete the 104 and then attach the 103 as a PDF without keying any of it in? Again, I hope we can get you UltraTax connected. I would reach out to your assessor to make sure they're okay with that. That might be more work for them, and they might not like that. So I would coordinate with your local assessor's offices before you do something like that. The question, Bud asked, why are we asking taxpayers to register when the agent is preparing the returns? The taxpayer does not do that when filing business or personal property income tax returns. But this is a question we get a lot, and it's a fair question. The department went back and forth on this multiple times, and there's two main reasons we did this. One, by doing it this way, the taxpayer can switch agents from one year to the next without that second agent having to redo anything. So one of the benefits of Popin is that on year 2, 3, 4, etc., all of the pool information just slides down the line. All the info, the only thing that you have to enter is the new information. And so by having the taxpayer have an account, all of that information always stays associated to the taxpayer. Additionally, it confirms to the assessor that the CPA is the person authorized by the taxpayer to submit the return. In our conversations with the assessors early on, this was their preference as far as the way that we set it up. We recognize it's not exactly the same as the way everybody does all of their systems, but we believe it is more secure this way and more explicitly secure than some other options that were available to us. Karen asked if she should set up her CPA firm before advising all of her clients to register under I am a property owner. I think that would be helpful, Karen. I think that would your clients would appreciate that because they could then immediately connect to your firm. I don't think it is required. It can always be the other way around, but I think it would be helpful. The question about whether or not you should enter all the information when you can't export the UltraTax into the system. We're hoping to connect to UltraTax, and so I hope this question is a non-issue here in the next month or two. Is there a save and continue option? There is. You have, I don't have my screen shared on the web portal anymore, but you can look at your in-progress filings. So there is a save and continue later option, yes. Is there any client authorization needed before a filing is before a return is filed? The client authorization does that when you connect the two. So Lynn asks if, for instance, you need to go back to the client and ask them to submit, and you don't. When you authorize an agent, you authorize them to submit on your behalf, and it will appear on the taxpayer's account when it has been submitted, so that they get notifications as well. We talked with members of the CPA Society as well as various other groups like the assessors, and we thought this was okay efficiency to add. Will assessors have the same access to connect to the taxpayer as the agents? No, they do not have the same access. They are able to view any filing that has been submitted to their jurisdiction, but they don't have the same level of access as the agents. How do multiple locations for a single taxpayer work? Is there a login for each location? So in that case, if you're asking for how do you file multiple, say you've got returns in multiple counties, you simply file multiple returns like you will, and there's a way to connect that, connect those forms to each individual county in that case. Popin will be available on January 13th, 2022. That is correct. It's available now if you have 2021 forms that you haven't submitted yet. I'd recommend you do so, but it is available for the 22 filing season on January 13th. That's correct. What will be the cost for filing in the future? We don't know the answer to that. We don't have our arms wrapped around the level of usage that the system will be having from year to year. And ultimately, that's what it's based on. The cost is based on. The department was provided an appropriation from the General Assembly to get the site stood up, and we were able to successfully stand the site up using enough of the funds that there were some left over for ongoing maintenance or ongoing costs. And we're trying to be as frugal with those dollars as we can so as to keep the site maintained for as long as possible before we need to implement a sustaining fee. But our strong desire is for that fee to be as minimal as possible, simply to cover costs. And there's no timeline for when that cost would be implemented. If we use a general agent account, can multiple users be logged in at the same time? That's a really great question that I believe the answer is yes to, but I want to make sure I speak with the technical folks to confirm that. Believe the answer is yes. Check the written responses later for the exact answer to that question. And then I think the last question that we have here is clients that do not have computer access and are not able to, for instance, they don't have an email address or they don't have access to the internet. The Popin is not required. And so for those individuals, they will need to stick with the paper process that they've been going through. So we haven't been able to solve that problem yet. And for the first couple of years, we're not able to get through that. We recognize that internet's not widely available through the state. And so this is an optional way to file. The paper forms are still available. Karen asked, can I set up my CPA firm and clients at this time? That is correct. You should. I would highly recommend it, Karen. You just can't during the first part of January when it's shut down. That's exactly right. That's why we're here today, trying to get this in front of you, hopefully with plenty of time so that you can get people set up. And then when January 13th comes around, you're ready to rock and roll. I highly recommend that. Thank you for pointing that out, Karen. I'm going to check my notes from my colleagues. We might be good on questions. Is there one more? Can a copy of what has been filed be printed? Yes, yes, it can. You have the ability to print off a PDF version of what you have. And that's not just for this year's, you can do that for next year's or for the previous years as well. You know, one of the things that maybe we didn't make super clear is that one of the great things about this year is that if you filed already last year using Popin, then this year you're able to roll that forward with just a couple of clicks, enter any new information that might just be a little bit different. Maybe there's more data that needs to be entered at the top of the pools. Maybe there is a change in email address, or I'm sorry, a change in billing address or something that you'd like to effectuate. But otherwise, you don't have to enter in all of the information that in every line of the pool. And that's really one of the big things that we're trying to market here is that Popin is really great for the year-over-year benefit that it's going to keep your data and keep moving forward with it. All righty. I think we're getting close to the end here, and so I'll take a sip of water and let you all come up with your last questions. But I think Lynn asks if does their client have to have an account for me to be authorized to file for them? Yes, they do. Okay. If I submit my return in a timely manner before the due date, but it is later not accepted by the assessor, would this be considered a late filing? Not an expert on that, and so let me get back to you on that. I believe. Well, let me not speculate in public. Let's just get you the correct answer the first time. All righty. Oh, couple more here coming in. Yes, there was an issue last year as far as the values in the pools. That was corrected. It is no longer there anymore. What about preparing the return and then uploading the return? I'm not sure what you're asking there, Bud. If you want to throw in a little clarification, I'd love to help you out with that. If an assessor has a taxpayer that's having trouble using Popin, how would you assist them in their filing? I guess it would depend on the issue that they're having. I would go back to those support channels that we talked about earlier, Anonymous, and figure out if it is a bug with Popin, or if it is something that the user just needs some training, and you could push them towards some of the help information that is on the website. That's pretty situational, but there are plenty of resources available. If you wanted to reach out to us, if it wasn't something the department could help you with, we could at least point you in the right direction to how you can help with that taxpayer. Does the client need to sign off or approve the forms before we submit? They do not. When they authorize you to access their account, they are also authorizing you to submit on their behalf. We've heard some CPA firms are asking their clients to log in and review before they submit it for them, but it is not a requirement. As a business taxpayer with locations in multiple counties, we had to keep entering a lot of repetitive information last year, address, FEIN, et cetera. Has this been fixed? Let me get you an exact answer on that. I believe it has, but let me get you an exact answer on that because I know that was in motion a lot. So check back on the written responses. We'll have a definitive answer for you. Bud asks if you're using a third-party software, could you upload into the system from there? That is what we're attempting to complete before the filing season this year, Bud. That's the API that we mentioned, and we've been in contact with, I think, 5 or 6 different third-party software systems that are trying to integrate directly with Popin so that you can do exactly that. And I think that's going to be a big help for this audience in particular, so that you guys don't have to change your processes from what they are now. Karen asked does the client have access to view the return before I hit submit? That is correct. It's a filing on their account that you are creating, and so they will have access to it the entire way, and they can see it when you save it and come back later. That's correct, Karen.
Scott, this is Jenny. Just wanted to, we did have a question come in where the written responses will be to the questions. So I'm going to jump in here since that is something that I'll be taking care of for everybody participating. We will take the questions from this morning and this afternoon and combine those into written responses. We will have that available on the personal property page on our website, as well as under our webinar page. And we will also be emailing those out to the participants when they are ready. You will first get the PowerPoint and the video of the presentation, and then the FAQs will probably be coming a few days after that. So there's been a lot of questions with both sessions, so we will get through those as fast as we can to get those out to everybody.
Somebody asked if using Popin will be a requirement in the future. That's not up to DLGF. The creation of Popin was done via code by the General Assembly, and So I don't know the answer to that. I would not speculate as to far as whether that would be the case or not. Someone asked regarding Bud's question, I believe you mentioned we can submit them online for a taxpayer with perhaps they're just their name, EIN, address, parcel, if the local assessor okays it uploaded as a PDF. Maybe I should be a little bit more clear here. DLGF has no role in the approval or acceptance of filings, so that's not for DLGF to decide. It would not upset DLGF if that was the case. It would be a conversation you should have with the local assessor. So I don't want to act like I'm saying yes, DLGF would be okay with that. I'm simply saying DLGF is not a part of that calculus at all. So just wanted to be clear about that. We're happy to provide the site and facilitate the connection between our taxpayers and our local assessors, but it's not a function that DLGF gets involved in the actual review of the forms. All righty. I hope we've answered all of your questions. We are here towards the end. I'll hang out for another minute or two, but thank you all for being here. I really appreciate all of your time today. I hope that we answered some of the lingering questions you might have had about Popin and helped show you how it can help you and your clients. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything else that we can do. Please continue to monitor Jenny's emails that come out regarding Popin. And we'll keep moving forward with this. So thank you all. Thank you for all that you guys do for the taxpayers of Indiana. And have a happy holidays. Thank you all.